But we are now joined by Joel Rubin. He is the former Deputy Assistant of State during the Obama administration. Thank you so much for being here, Joel.
It's great to be with you, Kelsey.
So, Joel, back in February, Secretary Blinken postponed his trip to China in response to a surveillance balloon being spotted here in the U.S. Can we take this as a good sign that he's finally in Beijing after months of delay?
Well, Kelsey, this is the single most consequential trip of a leading American official to China since the beginning of the 1970s, when President Nixon and Henry Kissinger were opening up that relationship back then. And so there's a lot of ground to cover. It's important that Secretary Blinken be there, that he engage directly with the Chinese leadership to explain exactly what it is the United States is concerned about regarding China's policies across much of the globe, and certainly in recent months with the spy balloon incident, as you referenced. And it's important to get this relationship into lanes that are clear and that there are clear red lines, so that there are no miscalculations and that this doesn't get into a more of a military kind of relationship. That a war between the two countries is what everyone wants to avoid.
Yeah, definitely, Joel. So the State Department has been downplaying hopes for a breakthrough between the two rivals after a tense call with China's foreign minister on Wednesday. And China's defense minister declined to meet with the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin during a summit earlier this month. At what point should we expect to come out of this trip?
Yeah, Kelsey, these are the latest examples of an ongoing series of difficult bilateral engagements with China. Even at the beginning of the Biden administration, Secretary Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan were in Alaska for a meeting, and they were attacked and verbally lambasted by the Chinese delegation there. So this is likely going to be an ongoing, perennial, tense set of discussions. And I think we're going to have to see the kinds of engagements that we saw perhaps during the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, where there was a lot of chest thumping, a lot of arguments about what needs to be done and what needs to be expected from the other side. As you mentioned earlier, as Evan mentioned, issues related to Ukraine come up, human rights in China, their aggression in the Pacific region. So that's on the American agenda. And the Chinese are going to complain as well about access to American markets, concerns about technology not being exported to China anymore from the United States. So there's going to have to be a process. And I think that's what we can expect out of this, is ultimately a process of how to engage on all of these difficult issues.
So many difficult issues right now, Joel. President Joe Biden also said that he wants to usher in, let me read this to you, quote, thaw a warming of relations. But as we know, the obstacles remain huge. What would it take to do that?
What it would take is patience, persistence, and this kind of continual engagement. And it means that there's going to have to be a lot of hard work and potentially working groups following on this high-level engagement. And that is oftentimes what happens in diplomacy, is that once the leaders meet, and President Biden and President Xi, they speak periodically and they may meet, then they have to task their agencies, the State Department, the Defense Department, and others, and the analogous ones in China, to really hammer out agreements and understandings of all of these issues. And this is not going to be an overnight kind of dynamic. And this tension has been building for a number of years. And it's not going to just be with the magic wand waved away through one meeting. This is going to be one of multiple meetings, and it's going to require a lot of direct engagement at many levels of the government.
Well, a big question here, and let's just get right to it. Will Chinese President Xi Jinping and Secretary Blinken personally sit down and talk? Do you think they're actually going to meet?
I think it's likely that there will be a discussion. I do. But I don't believe that this is going to be any replacement for the bilateral dialogue that President Xi will have with President Biden. And in many ways, Secretary Blinken, it's important to note, has been one of the closest national security advisors to President Biden for decades now, in different capacities and different roles, following with President Biden. So he does speak directly for President Biden. And I think it's going to be very important for them to have an understanding about what they should expect from a summit, which should not just be a meeting to have more meetings, but a meeting to really have discussions about agreements between the two sides.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.